It started midway in my career. You kind of did feel that you took second fiddle to the boys. It wasn't until I grew up in my career and became more of management that I really felt the discrepancy between the gender gap.
You know, I gotta say I had a lot of blinders on. I really didn't. This was something I was born to do, and I was gonna do it no matter what.
That's when I started experiencing the fact that I wasn't making the same salary as my peers. It was the fact that I wasn't getting some of the more plum opportunities to work on as my peers.
I'm looking at what resumes I was getting and who ended up being on my set, and it was very male. I'm like, why am I the only chick here?
It was with pay, it was with bosses telling you to wear a certain sweater. It became very tough as I got further up the ladder.
Collectively as women, we just work. We don't care about gender. We just gotta work. And if it means that we bump into other women and hire each other, that's great, but it's more about let's get the work done.
Filmmaking is a collaborative art form that combines creativity with dedication to make something beautiful. Unfortunately, there is a huge lack of female presence in the industry. This phenomenon has been an increasing problem in the last 30 years. Women make up only 20% of key producing roles in a Hollywood film, creating a clear barrier between genders within the industry. Alicia Jean Lebeda is a powerful woman in the man's world. She's fighting the fight for women and speaking up about how she is personally helping close the gender gap.
I am currently the interim president of Women in Film and Television of New England. I am the CEO of Good Natured Dog Productions. I also work as a host and traffic coordinator for WCAI, the Cape and Islands NPR station, which is part of WGBH, and I could go on, but we'll leave it there. Awesome. My dad and his father weren't filmmakers in their own right, but they had a split 16mm camera, which is, you know, it's about that big, and the way that works is that it's a big piece of film, you put it in, it's a cartridge, and you flip it over, and then you split it up and you show it. So I have footage of my father from the day he came home from the hospital till the 70s when he had long and awkward hair. So this was all kind of the storytelling must capture life, must show it to other people bug. Went to the Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia. I actually went to become a camera operator, and I was a Steadicam op for a while. There was my class where there was it was me and then another gal in the other class, and we only crossed paths once in a while. And while we were in school, we really didn't think about it. We were one of the guys. I was gonna be the next Orson Welles, which I'm a couple years late. But it's funny though, because my role models were male. So for me, it was, no, I wanna be a filmmaker and do what, you know, Lucas is doing and do what Orwell's doing, just make movies. I wasn't so cognitive of the women's issues. So here I was in Savannah, and we were working, and I had met my husband at that point, and we were trying to decide what we're gonna do. He went to New York, I went to LA. I found an apartment. We were like, oh yeah, this is where we're gonna be. And then right around that time, there was a bunch of fires that went through LA, burnt down the apartment that I was looking at. So I said, this is a sign. Maybe like a week later, I got a phone call from a production in Sandwich, Massachusetts. And this guy, Watts Biggers, who invented or came up with, created Underdog. And he wanted to shoot a film on Cape Cod. And it was like, oh, I'm gonna come back to Cape Cod. I will be a production designer. So that's what I did. I'm looking at what resumes I was getting and who ended up being on my set, and it was very male. I'm like, why am I the only chick here? Oh, wait a minute, I get to make this decision. And then I started saying, you know, it's not that they're not here, it's just I'm not thinking about it. You want to hire the person that's best for the job. But I give a lot of leeway for people who are new. A lot of it comes out of conversations. Maybe I didn't see their work, but I liked their attitude. I started applying that kind of more across the board and thinking, all right, who can I go after? Who have I had a good conversation with that I should get them to my set? So I was actually pulling in women that were in non-traditional film fields, like communications, like marketing, putting them in producing roles.
Margie Sullivan is a brave woman who is currently the executive producer at Red Tree Productions in Boston. She's the president of the Massachusetts Production Coalition and started her career in the ad world, where she faced disparities because of her gender. Margie is a fighter who advocates for women in her industry every day.
I grew up as a product of one of the original Mad Men on Madison Avenue. My father was director of advertising at Colgate.
What's missing? One thing. Pass the Heinz.
You mean the Heinz ketchup?
It's Heinz. It only means one thing.
I was in the theater department at my high school, and my theater instructor said to me that I should really check out a little school in Boston called Emerson College. And I applied and I got into it, and within my first week of school, I was associate producing an internal soap opera called Quincy Hall at Emerson, and I kind of had my aha moment and realized this was what I wanted to do. I really liked being in charge and I liked giving out orders.
I'm sorry, okay?
Good. Now go apologize.
What? Then she'll know I did it.
You did do it. I told you not to.
Come on, it's funny.
Really? Would you show it to Lane?
He would think it's funny.
What if it were Don on his knees?
See, this is why I don't like working with women. You have no sense of humor.
You're fired.
It wasn't until I grew up in my career and became more of management that I really felt the discrepancy between the gender gap. It was the fact that I wasn't getting some of the more plum opportunities to work on as my peers.
And how did that make you feel?
Angry. And I was a fighter. I always have been a fighter, so I would not hesitate to open my mouth. It made me want to keep going with what I was doing. I had a passion for what I was doing. I wanted to make sure that other women had opportunities like I did, and I eventually did get to the upper management executive level at one of the biggest advertising agencies in the country. But it wasn't without always having to fight for everything that you wanted. I actually had a boss say to me, "I'm sorry, we can't give you a raise right now because a couple of the men in the department have families." And I said, "I have a family too." And that went on deaf ears. I think until you start seeing women in very powerful roles, such as the President of the United States, our industry is going to always struggle because the point of view coming down from the top is a male point of view.
Hasty Pudding's Theatricals is a theatrical society at Harvard University that performs a drag show every year. Women are traditionally barred from auditioning for the pudding. But this year that tradition was changed when Olivia Miller and Tess Davison proved that it's not how many people you have backing a change, it's how dedicated you are to the cause.
Harvard is related to the pudding, but the pudding is its own institution. At Harvard, it gets private funding from its donors, it has its own board, so it's on campus and filled with students, but there's a whole nother network separate from Harvard kind of pulling the strings. The pudding is integrated in all levels except for cast. So the pudding actually is always something that we kind of joked about auditioning for. Originally, it was a strange thing where freshman and sophomore year especially, it was just an accepted thing that women just don't do this. And it was not even in our psyche that women should try to do it. It was just an accepted fact that women are not in cast.
This forest reminds me of the place that my friend Dorothy got mugged and her ruby slippers stolen.
Oz?
No, New Haven.
Yeah, and I think we always looked at it as like,
the like peak of Harvard theater, you know. So it was always like a cool thing, but we always kind of knew that we could never be in it.
And it wasn't until our junior year when Amy Poehler was Woman of the Year, and she got up and in part of her speech accepting the Hasty Pudding Award, she made a comment about how sad she was that she didn't see any women on stage. And for us, we were kind of like, wait, yeah, why aren't there women on stage? This doesn't make any sense.
There's like the final clubs at Harvard. The main ones are all male. The ones that have like nice houses and a lot of money are all male. And there's been a lot of talk, like the past couple semesters, a couple of them have gone co-ed over the last few months and stuff. So it's definitely like this year become a big conversation. Especially for a place like Harvard, when you get here, you're just so just in love with it, and everything feels so magical. And it's not until you've kind of gotten used to being here and like stopped like looking at it like the most glorious place in the world that you start realizing that there are like issues and problems.
I think there's just kind of a climate right now of investigating institutions at Harvard and seeing where we can make it better, because Harvard was a boys' club. A lot of things have kind of slipped through the cracks, and I think having the final clubs and the Hasty Pudding issues both arise at the same time is just kind of a result of this climate where people do want to be involved in all aspects of Harvard, and people are starting to question things, and I think it's just both of them happening at the same time just kind of drew off of each other.
We like comped the script, which means like over the summer we competed in a competition to write the script, which was super fun. Like we spent a lot of the summer working on it. We didn't end up winning, but I think as we were writing it, we started thinking about like female representation, because we were conflicted about like the characters that we were writing and the songs that we were writing and what we were having the characters say, and we kind of realized that like we're students here, we can do something, we're gonna be seniors, and like if anyone has the power to try to make a change, it's us.
You know, we could also picture ourselves on that stage doing those parts. And so going through the script writing process especially, I feel like we started to get frustrated with the fact that we were trying to be a part of this organization in another capacity when we felt so strongly that we could be a part of it on stage as opposed to behind the scenes.
And yeah, and a lot of people have said things like, well, you could be in the band, or well, you could be on tech, but I mean, that's not what we do. Like, we want to be actresses and have all the resources that actors at Harvard are given. But a lot of the students in the pudding feel the exact same way as us and just don't really have the power to make that change. We were also, I think we were given like official support by the university.
Yeah.
The dean like had a talk with us and told us that he was fully in support of what we were doing and stuff.
We were trying to be very sensitive about it because a lot of our friends are in the pudding. We weren't attacking this institution because we hate it. We were attacking it because we want that same opportunity.
Initially, we just contacted female actresses we knew and said, let's just all sign up. So that's really all we did. And then one of our friends put it on Facebook and it got a lot of likes. And we didn't really contact any newspapers or anything. I think just the fact that it's a cause that people at Harvard and also not at Harvard really care about is why it got so much publicity and stuff.
Because in a weird way, it's kind of sad that a group of women auditioning for something is still interesting in 2016. You'd think that it would be a standard, a given. This happens all the time. Yeah. I remember Tess at one point, after the list where we had signed up for audition spots had been posted on Facebook and it got so many likes, and Tess was like, ooh, maybe we'll get a Crimson article out of this. And then like next week we were talking to the Boston Globe, which was unprecedented. We had no idea that people would be so invested in it.
As we were writing that show, we kind of like, we pictured women in the male roles, honestly. Like, we just felt like it was time to have it happen.
We were allowed to audition. We weren't barred from auditioning. And we had intentionally signed up back to back so that for like an hour and a half, the director and the people casting the show, who are not Harvard students, who are professionals brought in, they would only be seeing very talented, very committed, dedicated women auditioning for a chunk of time. So we were allowed to audition.
Yeah, I think it felt good. It felt like we were being heard, and it felt like we were doing something really good.
But we were never seriously considered for a callback. After we had auditioned, we got an email, just the women got an email saying, thank you so much for contributing to the conversation. We are not considering adding women to cast this year. Thank you, goodbye, sort of thing. And that for me felt kind of shady.
It kind of showed that it was like a female issue and not a talent issue. And I think they would have seen, if they had called women back, they might have seen how it might work. And it seemed like they were just kind of shutting themselves off to
It
that.
felt like they were allowing us to audition because it would have been very bad press for them if they denied us an audition. If they were never going to call us back in the first place, they were just letting us audition for the sake of letting us audition. A lot of the arguments that we encountered in comments on articles and things were saying like that the tradition of drag is very important to the Hasty Pudding, but what that ignores is the fact that drag can go both ways. Women can do drag very successfully. If you're just holding on to a tradition because it's a tradition, it loses its value in some sense.
Having men play women and having that be funny, but women as men isn't funny, is a little bit sexist. I think any gender can be funny and can be ridiculed, and to have the only funny gender in the pudding be the women is kind of backwards.
Yeah, women are the butt of the joke. People could be more proactive about what they do. You can't wait for someone to offer you something. And whether or not it's like on a large scale or a small scale, if you have something that you've written, if you have a vision, gather your friends and just do it. Be that person who shows up. We showed up to the audition with like 20 other people, which made a statement. It made ripples.
Don't take no for an answer. Keep trying. Lean in. Like, yeah, just give it your all and don't stop.